From Southern Maryland's weather leader, this is a JB Weather Alert.
Good Saturday afternoon, and I'm forecaster John Bordash sitting with you in the JB Weather Center just before 4 o'clock, continuing to track our developing winter storm. Taking a look at William Richmond Inc. TrueView radar this afternoon, we can see that our winter storm is currently bringing widespread snow, sleet, and freezing rain to much of the central and southern United States as we stay locked in with the cold air. This storm system is on the move, and we will begin to see impacts overspread our region over the next 12 hours. A winter storm warning is set to take effect at 10 o'clock tonight, run through the day on Sunday, and we will be looking at this scheduled to be getting canceled around 4 a.m. on Monday. This warning is in effect for impactful snow and ice throughout the forecast duration. Well, let's get you a better look at timing by taking a look at Cedar Point Federal Credit Union Future View. And this model helps to tell the story that we're looking at snow to overspread the region overnight so that by 1, 2, and 3 in the morning, most locations will be looking at snow. As we approach the 4, 5, and 6 o'clock hour, we will begin to see areas of moderate to heavy snow begin to develop. And generally, we will be looking at a thumping of snow or those deepest blues that could be representing snow upwards of 1 inch per hour falling before you get that switch over to sleet. That might start to move into southern zones as early as 6, 7, or 8 o'clock, and then we will begin to see that all transition to the north. Sleet really does take a hold of the region as we head towards mid to late morning, headed towards the lunch hour. One thing I do want to note here with our model, it is colder to start. You'll notice that it held on to that snow for several hours, allowing for higher snowfall totals. This model is also having a bit of a hard time deciphering the precipitation types. One thing you might notice here at about 12:30 is that it is showing a cold rain across the lower eastern shore that even sneaks back towards southern St. Mary's County and parts of the northern neck. And that is definitely possible if temperatures are able to warm enough. I'm a bit skeptical that they will warm enough for that to occur. What tends to happen with our future view model here is that it can mistake freezing rain for cold rain and therefore not have the correct shading. I'm not saying that to say that this model is incorrect, but this means we will need to closely watch temperatures. As we play the model here through the afternoon, it actually transitions much of southern Maryland over to that cold rain, which again could definitely be possible if temperatures do warm. It will be a little bit harder than this though to kind of kick this cold air out that we have at the surface. Nevertheless, we will be looking at widespread sleet and freezing rain across the region throughout Sunday afternoon. Our model gets that sleet line as far north as York, Pennsylvania. I suspect it probably will go further northwest than that before we begin to see everything slowly wrap up as we head after midnight on Monday. Generally, my expectations for that transition from snow to sleet look something like this, as early as about 8 a.m. down towards portions of Leonardtown, Fredericksburg, Charlottesville. I think 8 to 10 a.m. Again, that mid to late morning time frame is a pretty good one to be expecting that transition in portions of northern Calvert County, southern Anne Arundel, back through Culpeper, just south of Harrisonburg. That transition will occur around the lunch hour, if not the early afternoon hours, as you head northwest of I-95. Generally, with my final call, you will see that reflected here where the areas that transition last will see the most snow, which makes sense. Areas across south central Pennsylvania, I think, are still on tap to see that 8 to 14 inches. But the one change we have seen become evident here as we begin to really focus in on this ice forecast is that threat of sleet and freezing rain may be a little bit more widespread than initially thought. I do think areas northwest of I-95 do need to be worried about sleet, potentially upwards of 3 inches of sleet, with icing being the primary concern across southeastern zones. We look at this transition from snow to sleet, then to freezing rain, and maybe for some of you eventually rain, depending on how big that layer in the atmosphere is that has temperatures above 32. The atmosphere is a vertical column, so we're not just looking at temperatures that are sitting at 32 here at the surface. It needs to be below freezing for about a mile up into the atmosphere, which is not always easy to do. Once you start to integrate some of that warmer air into that column, you will begin to melt those initial snowflakes into raindrops. And then the question becomes, how big is that cold layer then beneath the warm air to refreeze that? And I know that gets complicated. An easy way to think of sleet and freezing rain. Freezing rain is rain that falls throughout the column of the atmosphere, but will freeze on those cold surfaces here at the surface. Freezing rain clings. It creates that ice glaze, and that is what could weigh down power lines and branches. Meanwhile, sleet, it's more like a donut with sprinkles, right? Think of the sprinkles as sleet. It just pings off the top. It does stick to the surface and will make travel very difficult. However, it does not accumulate in the same way as freezing rain. Freezing rain is more of an ice glaze, where sleet is more of an ice pellet. Taking a look at that final snowfall forecast, though, I think areas from Richmond to Tappahannock, Leonardtown, Salisbury, on over towards Atlantic City, on tap to see a widespread 3 to 6 inches of snow with some heavy icing occurring. 4 to 8 inches gets moved back west a little bit to now include the entire I-95 corridor. This is an area where I am worried a bit about that thump going over to sleet a bit earlier. 8 to 12 inches northwest of I-95, with 10 to 14 well to the north, where those areas are able to hang on to snow the longest. Sleet will be a concern primarily in Northern Virginia, but I do suspect that sleet concerns do sneak their way eastward through Maryland and following the I-95. You could see just upwards of half an inch to an inch and a half worth of ice pellets on top of the snow, right? So this is going to accumulate on top of what will have already fallen in the morning. And when we take a look at that ice as well, upwards of half an inch of ice could be possible through portions of central Virginia down towards Richmond. We will need to see how far north that is able to sneak, and that's primarily because we need to monitor the sleet. The longer the sleet will hang on, it means lower the ice glaze potential. Regardless, I do think most areas will see freezing rain at some point, and that will begin to cause impacts on area roadways, and that will also bring into the picture the threat of some scattered power outages. When we think of ice storms, you want to make sure that today you've been getting ready. You've been getting rid of any extra debris around your house that might cause injury or power outages, and you also want to make sure that your devices are charged in case you do see prolonged power outages. I think that is more likely to the south, not necessarily through the mid-Atlantic, but it is something we will want to watch. If we were to summarize all this into just one graphic, I do expect that initial thump of snow to occur as early as midnight, but I'm really going to focus on that time frame from about 2 a.m. through probably about 8 to 10 a.m. I think that is when most of the accumulation will happen. When we take a look at that transition to sleet occurring mid to late morning, it will really bring those highest impacts through the afternoon, making travel very difficult. You'll have ice on the snow, widespread issues. Winds will also begin to gust upwards of 20 to 25 to 30 miles per hour, and that could help to potentially increase that threat of power outages as temperatures kind of hang out there around the freezing point after a very cold start. You will want to stay with JB Weather for the latest information. I'll be in the Weather Center throughout the day today, going through the day tomorrow to keep you and your family one step ahead of this widespread winter storm. In the meantime, I'm forecaster John Bordash. Please keep it locked in here with JB Weather for the latest information.
Check the forecast anytime online at jbweather.net.